When I first decided to finally watch Darwin's Game, I was a bit cautious considering how these death games slash suspenseful animes usually don't always work, since sometimes they try to be really violent or really messed up all for the sake of a reaction, and sometimes it just comes off as being edgy. Although with that being said, it doesn't mean that all these types of animes are like this. I mean, a while ago I watched Tomodachi Game, and just like Darwin's Game, that series also got me interested, and it actually was something that was actually good because it didn't need to be too violent or didn't need to be too gory in order to make things interesting. Just the games, but also the dynamic between the characters and the concept of people trying really hard to make sure that people don't know who they truly are, even if that person is considered close and somebody that they have known for quite a while. It's also something that doesn't really get too focused on sometimes when it comes to these kinds of animes. So with that in mind, when I was watching Darwin's Game, I also noticed that just like Tomodachi Game, it also had its own uniqueness, where we get this scenario of what happens when someone who clearly had no intentions of entering a death game whatsoever is now put in that scenario where they have to survive despite not knowing what's truly going on, and despite having very little experience of knowing how to survive when there's so many people going after you and trying to take your life. Well, that's exactly what happens to our MC Kaname, who one day gets a message on his phone from one of his friends who is about to die and decides to send Darwin's Game to him. Not knowing what actually happened, Kaname decides to open up the game, and because of this, he unknowingly is now participant of Darwin's Game. Although he doesn't really know it at first and doesn't think too much of it, that is until he is alone and he is challenged by some guy in a costume who has intentions of killing him. And to make things even more scary, even when he tries to get help from like someone, let's say like a police officer, well, it doesn't really matter because the guy in the costume just easily kills him like it's nothing, making it very clear in these moments that regardless if you're in public or not, if someone knows that you participate in Darwin's games, even in public you're not safe, and at any time they could challenge you and try to hurt you without any consequences. And while there are a few rules that we come to find out as the anime continues, like how despite a good portion of people being involved in Darwin's Game, it seems that there are some restrictions that you have to follow. This being that you can't say Darwin's Game in public and you have to refer to as the game, and the fact that once you enter Darwin's Game you actually do get a few powers, this being a thing called Sigil, which is basically something that is given to each player most likely to be able to survive. Although with this being said, it's also worth pointing out that these sigils are random, meaning that even if you want a specific power, it's unlikely that you may get it since it's all random, meaning you can have one of the best abilities out there, like say being able to cast fire, or you can have an ability that you don't really think is useful, and in some scenarios it can work, but other times it could be completely useless, like being able to tell whether someone is lying or not. So not only do you have to survive with people hunting you down, but you also have to pray that your ability is good in order for your chance to survive to increase. And if you don't have a good sigil, well, you just have to play with the cards you're dealt with and try to find another way to survive without requiring your sigil whatsoever. And what's interesting about these abilities is the fact that we don't really know what Kaname's ability is at first, since during his battle with him and the guy in the mascot who's trying to kill him, he's actually able to defeat him without using his sigil, even though during this time he had no idea of the existence of sigils and had no idea that he had one as well. But this will be a bit of foreshadowing as to what Kaname is capable of, as even though he may not look strong and he's not somebody that can take out like 10 different people all at once, he has something that's just as powerful as well, and that is intelligence. Kaname is able to use his words correctly sometimes in order to get out of situations, or in order to convince the people that are trying to hurt him into thinking that they have him in a corner and that he's going to be defeated and that they are the winners, when in reality all he is doing is just either buying time or making sure that everything is going according to his plan. And even when he's in a serious situation that it seems that it's very difficult for anybody to get out of, he always finds a way to get out of that serious situation, like during his battle between him and Shuka, who is not only considered one of the most skillful persons in Darwin's Game, but also one of the most dangerous ones, as no matter who you are, it seems that she has had a habit of just being able to take down anybody regardless of what they throw at her. And don't let her personality trick you that she is this cute innocent girl that can not even hurt a fly, because very quickly she will show you that she has a crazy side to her, and will kill anybody without hesitation whatsoever. But despite having all this talent and skill, it seems that she was no match for Kaname, as once again, due to Kaname's intelligence and being able to use mind tricks to throw off Shuka, he's able to take advantage of it and be able to successfully, even if she was the most skillful person in this battle, and even if Kaname got a little bit of help of his Sigil, this being the ability to create things out of thin air, more specifically weapons, it doesn't take away from the fact that because Kaname was able to use his mind, it got him to make a plan to be able to counter Shuka even if she seemed very confident that she was going to win. And this even made a change to Shuka, as she oftentimes believed that only the strongest survive and that the weak were always going to die regardless by the strong. After this, she's able to realize that that may be the case, as even though Kaname was nowhere near her level when it came to fighting, she was still beaten by him, and this causes a new relationship between Kaname and Shuka, in which later on Shuka opens up to Kaname, revealing that the reason why she even participated in Darwin's game to begin with wasn't because she did it by accident, it's because she wanted to, as she wanted to get revenge on somebody who killed her loved ones. So with this in mind, it makes sense as to why Shuka was so determined to be the best and take everyone out. It's because she wants to find the person that is responsible for causing her pain and suffering. And this brings us to the whole theme of morality, as no surprise when we see Shuka, you can tell that her morals are very different from Kaname's. I mean, to begin with, unlike Shuka, who can kill people left and right in the blink of an eye, Kaname can't do that. He still obviously has his humanity and he still has his hesitations when it comes to taking someone's life, because even though the scenarios where he's at, where he fully knows that he has to survive till the very end, and this does include having to take out people that are trying to take him out, at the same time he's very conflicted about it, because it's not like some of these people do it because they love to kill others. He knows full well that some people have this mindset that they have to do it because that's the only way to survive. If you don't kill anybody, then who's to say that that person isn't going to kill you because you showed hesitation? And even at one point during one of the games, he actually gets confronted by somebody in which he thinks that Kaname is not even worth killing, because if he's not going to fight back and show that he's actually determined to survive, then that's just going to be a waste of bullets, since you can interpret this as Kaname being seen as defenseless prey, that even if he's not the one that kills him, who's to say that there isn't somebody else out there that will show no hesitation, unlike Kaname, to kill him right away. It gives us a good idea that not everybody is a killing machine, and they have their own priorities, since no surprise there's also rewards if you survive all the way through a game, and of course it could be life changing. And I think I really enjoy it when Darwin's game was able to show us that not everybody is completely evil, as we get moments where people who are in this game aren't doing it just for themselves, but they're also doing it for people that they care about. They want those people to be able to live a life that even if they're not there anymore, and even if they don't make it, it doesn't really matter, because they were able to accomplish what they were trying to do. And that is to make sure that their loved ones are able to survive without them, and they're able to have a life even if they're not around anymore. But that's not to say that there isn't people who are completely evil, as regardless there's always going to be people out there that don't care about anybody else but themselves and are going to do whatever it takes to get what they want. And if they don't have it, well, they'll just take it regardless if it means hurting people, and they'll get a lot of people involved who probably have nothing to do with it just to get back at somebody that decided to make enemies with them. And here's where we get our antagonist of Darwin's game, and this is none other than Wang, a man that shows no sympathy or empathy to people that he views them as enemies or people that he views them as nothing but obstacles that aren't in his way. And not only is he arrogant, but he's very egotistical as well, but not to mention extremely dangerous, as not only does he have his own gang, but he's managed to build a reputation to the other people who are involved in Darwin's game as somebody to not mess with, as when you get into his line of sight, that regardless of how many people go after him or regardless of what the Sigils are, he is able to somehow always counter it. He's always able to be victorious, not to mention that he's oftentimes also very strategic and very intelligent in some places where he oftentimes tends to not reveal himself even if there's chaos all around, as this is a way to not not only surprise the people who think they are safe, but also to make sure that they have a bulletproof plan and to counter any scenario that might happen once they get in the picture. But of course, while Wang was able to do this for a really long time, this of course will be something that will be hindered by none other than Kaname, who by now we already know is very good at tricking people and making people think that he has no plan whatsoever, while in reality he always has a trick up his sleeve to make sure that he wins. And that's exactly what would happen, as Wang, somebody who you probably didn't think Kaname out of all people was the one to outsmart him, of course now makes him his priority to get rid of him, because he probably knows full well that if Kaname is still around, he knows it's only a matter of time before he is out of Darwin's game. So being the evil person that he is, he finds a way to get Kaname's attention, and by doing this is to of course get somebody that Kaname knows full well and take them as a hostage. And unfortunately this person was one of Kaname's friends from school, who was just simply at the wrong place, wrong time, because all he was doing in these moments was looking for Kaname, since he wasn't going to school for quite a while, most likely due to him prioritizing Darwin's game over everything else. And when Kaname finds out that his friend was taken hostage by Wang, of course he is furious, as not only did he take somebody that he knows full well, but he also took somebody that had nothing to do with their battle or had nothing to do with Darwin's game whatsoever. But once Kaname has cooled down, he and his new allies that he has created because of Darwin's game make a plan to not only save his friend, but also to take down Wang and his crew once and for all. But it won't be easy, as due to Wang and his crew having Sigils just like them, they know that a battle is going to take place, and that's exactly what happens as both Kaname and Wang's crew fight one another in order to take each other out. But here's where we get the dark moment that was not only tragic to see, but it was also the breaking point for Kaname, as Wang, before he encountered Kaname, reveals to Kaname a box that's filled with his friend's parts, indicating very clearly that Wang finished his friend off before the confrontation. This of course breaks Kaname, because this was not somebody that he wanted to see die. This was somebody that clearly was just an innocent person who was forced to be involved by Wang, all because he wanted to get back at Kaname for even making enemies with him. But this will be the moment that Kaname realizes that there's just some people who are so evil that they don't deserve a second chance, and they don't deserve to keep existing. And this will be the time where we see Kaname truly show what he was capable of, as not only does he start hunting down Wang's crew and finishing them off one by one, but here's where we also see Wang starting to probably regret his decision of ever making enemies with Kaname, as despite his crew seeming to be on the top for so long, they were all getting destroyed very quickly by Kaname's new group of allies, which of course not only are they powerful, but they were also able to counter anything that Wang threw at them, especially during the fight with him and Shuka. Even though he thought that Shuka was going to die because of his sigil and surprise attacks, Shuka showed that he was no match for her whatsoever, and little by little he kept suffering because of it, as Shuka started to really show how twisted she can be. But in this case it's justified, as Wang was the last person you should feel bad for, as in these final moments we no longer see an arrogant, egotistical Wang thinking that he's going to win. Here we see a person who's trying to survive and knowing full well that these are going to be the last moments that he is alive. But being the person he is, Wang tries to laugh it off, which would infuriate Kaname, finally finishing off the person that is Wang. And with the new goal that Kaname has, this being to take down the Darwin's game, as he knows full well that there are people controlling this game, not to mention that there are various scenes in which we see powerful and wealthy people viewing the Darwin games as nothing but entertainment. Seeing people be killed left and right is just something that they probably see as something amusing to see, and no surprise, this is the last thing that Kaname wants, as he doesn't want to be seen as just somebody's toy and something that they could just be used and viewed as entertainment, because while him and the others are fighting for their life, all they're doing is sitting and watching and placing bets as to who's going to win and who's going to lose. And thus this will be the creation of Kaname's group, who will be the ones that they claim will be the reason as to why Darwin's game will no longer exist. And I think that's a really good way to end the series, and it's a good way to show just how far Kaname is as a person. He went from somebody being scared to kill somebody to now somebody having a goal in mind, and that is to destroy Darwin's game. And while of course he probably wishes in the back of his head, as seen many times, that he could just go back to his normal life, he knows he can't do that anymore. He has nothing to turn to because most of his friends who were involved in Darwin's game died, and sadly the friend that died because of it, even though he had nothing to do with it, also suffered because of Darwin's game. So with that in mind, despite Wang being eliminated, he knows that there's other groups of evil out there, and there's probably people out there that are more evil, if not more dangerous than Wang, that he needs to take care of. And just because he lost people he cared for, it doesn't mean that he's all alone, as now he has a new set of allies that are going to be following his direction and are going to have his back, making them the new people that he has to protect no matter what. Because even though he couldn't save his other friends, now he has a chance to redeem himself and make things right. So if you haven't watched Darwin's game, I highly recommend you give it a try, because it's one of those death games that's not only interesting but it's actually worth watching, as it actually does have a story and it's not just simply an anime that has a ton of gory and violent scenes just because it has to, and rushing the games we see to see the next one, as it actually takes its time to show how our characters complete the games, but also how they were able to overcome any obstacles that were in these games. And with that, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.